Hey, Hannah, how's it going?
Good. How are you, John? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. It's been a while.
It's been a very long time.
I know. Well, we'll just kind of hang out here for a few moments and get some attendees to show up. I know we're at the top of the hour. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Yes.
Given everything that's going on a Saturday, it's great to have you on here.
Yes, I'm very thankful to be on here. It's very weird to just, use my time wisely while stuck inside.
There's so many things that might come out of this whole thing, and I think that I see people running more than ever before here in Portland, which is where I'm based. We've been fortunate to have some pretty good weather, and it's like people are walking, they're doing 2 or 3 walks in a day, and I just look outside and I see the same person. It's like, what do you do? What do you do?
What
This
are
is
you
how you,
doing? Yep.
yeah. Um, well, we'll wait a couple more minutes before we get started. Welcome, folks, as you start to arrive. This is a webinar all about social media and crisis management and kind of how to communicate, how to engage with folks over social media. Today, I'm joined by Hannah Stonehouse Hudson, who's a good friend, someone that I've known for more than 10 years, former
Wow.
customer. I know, I had to think about that too. Uh, Former customer at my old coffee roaster cafe in a small town of 500 people up in Bayfield, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And so I could tell you Hannah's order right now. we I've
Which is
served her
hilarious.
I've served her thousands of drinks over the years. Put it that
Oh
way.
my God, yes.
Um,
Well, what's funny is you made an entire small town in northern Wisconsin addicted to coffee, and good coffee. So it's the weirdest thing ever. You have it's from a demographic you would never think, like the level of addiction in Bayfield, Wisconsin
it's
that
pretty
exists.
funny. We for those that don't know, and I'll introduce myself as well because we're kind of talking about my backstory a little bit. But
Yeah.
my name's John Ewalt. I'm the founder of Roaster Tools. We are software for coffee roasters. So I spent 8 years up in Bayfield, Wisconsin, running a coffee roaster, the one that Hannah's talking about. We were a year-round cafe in a town of 500 people, so we got to know our locals pretty well. And I developed a bunch of systems that became the basis for the software that we use today to help roasters scale their sales and their operations. Given everything that's going on, I've been trying to figure out how I can help my customers and the larger community basically mitigate the effects. How do we survive this in a way that strengthens us, to makes us more connected? And so I've been asking friends like Hannah to come on and just share some expertise because we all could learn something and hopefully use it. And these are things I think that are actionable. Not
Mm-hmm.
to not to implement something that takes 6 weeks. It's like, what can I use today
No.
and tomorrow? Because that's about the bandwidth I think most of us have. So
Right.
so now actually it's funny because I haven't seen Hannah for 5 years.
Yeah. Which is insane.
And so it's fun to have an opportunity to connect again. So
This is
thanks,
awesome.
Hannah.
Thank you.
and
Oh yeah.
and
Thank you.
and Hannah, do you mind giving a little bit of your backstory, a little bit of your background, and,
Yeah.
and kind of help people understand why you do what you do?
Yes. Okay. So I am an expert in virtual communities in a time of crisis and tragedy. That happens to be what my expertise is. And I came about this in a very odd way that involves big water, which is hilarious. Uh, and I've done a TEDx talk about this, so I won't go into the whole thing. But if people ever want to watch it, they can Google Hannah Stonehouse Hudson, and it'll probably show up. So in 2012, I took a photo of a gentleman and his dog in Lake Superior the Huffington Post called it the most viral photo of all time at the time. And now things just go viral and it's not that unusual so much. At that point, 2012, it was pretty unusual. And there weren't a whole lot of, there wasn't any information on how to handle the internet at that point. So for about 4 months, my life completely exploded in a way that anyone who hasn't been the center of internet scrutiny wouldn't completely comprehend. I think people are starting to understand it more now, but people are very personal on the internet, especially if they're stressed. People are very, as we're seeing now, People are extremely, they don't have boundaries, and they like to project onto you what they believe is the truth about a situation, whether it's the truth or not. So for about 4 months, I was flying over the US taking photos of dogs, because that's what came of this photo that I took of our friend. And I was also, my voicemail was filling up 3 or 4 times a day. People were driving 8 hours and walking into my home without knocking, because they felt this connection, and they felt like they needed to talk to me because they knew me online. And that was to say, it was wonderful. I love the community that I still have to this day, and actually have relied on in the past week. So there were very, very, very good things that came from this photo, but I also learned some things about how people interact in a not so healthy way online. So so when I am stressed, I'm extremely analytical. I was an insurance agent for a very long time. I took a lot of notes. And I was stressed. So I was taking notes on how groups were forming around this photo. And like I said, this is in the TEDx talk. So if anybody wants to see that, they can go see that. So I was taking notes on how groups were forming and how things were working out, and these virtual communities were building. And oddly enough, can't even say that correctly. About 4 months after this, my husband, a good friend of yours, John and Danny's, my husband passed away unexpectedly in an accident, in a ice fishing accident. And that went viral. And I say this in a very objective way. It's not that I'm not emotional about it. It's just I've talked about it for almost 8 years. That went viral in a very similar way to the John and Shep photo. So I was completely surrounded by love and kindness, but I also there were some things that happened in terms of how the story of his passing grew, that, like I said, when I'm stressed, I take notes. And so I almost came out of my own head and saw that this information traveled the same way, and people interacted in the same way that they did to this other viral situation. So I've spent the past 7 years studying how communities, virtual communities, interact online in times of tragedy and crisis. And I've done seminars for law enforcement, utility companies, cities, like how they manage social media, not necessarily from there's this crisis and we need to give information out, which I do help with, but also how to interact in a positive way. So it doesn't add negativity to the situation, because when you add negativity, it becomes a way bigger problem than if it was something that was positive. And so I've also basically reverse engineered that to say, okay, so here are the things that go viral. Here are the things that have gone viral in a good way. Here are the things that have gone viral in a bad way. What are the stories we can tell behind our businesses that people want to connect with? Like, why do these things connect in the way that they do? So that's why I teach these storytelling strategy workshops, because you can find the stories that people want to hear, and you do things in a non-salesy way that connect people, and people love that online, and they become connected to you, and your business grows exponentially. So that is the long version of what I do and why.
That's awesome. Do you think that, so one kind of question that kind of comes up right now is obviously a lot of what you just talked about was when there's like a unique event to either one person like you, or to like a particular agency, or something that's very focused. But what about in this case when there's COVID-19, right? We're here, it's a pandemic, it's everywhere. And so does that still, how do we interact with that story when it's not our crisis, it's everybody's crisis? It's
everybody's crisis.
Yeah.
It is. Okay. The first thing I'm going to tell everyone, and I tell everyone in my seminars, whether it's a small event or a big event, people's interactions with you have nothing to do with you. If we all come from a place when we're interacting online, whether it's our business or whether it's personal, where we know that the person on the other side of the screen has something else going on in their life. And we all know what that is right now. And they could have other things, income concerns. They could have a kid who's sick and it's not even like related to this. They could be, there's all kinds of things. So when we're thinking of interacting, we're already on edge. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but just think about these things. Like the people who are best at social media in general, and the people who are best at it right now understand that the person behind the screen is a real person and they interact with them as such. But they also understand that the person on the other side of the screen doesn't see you as a real person or brand. They just want to get out whatever angst they have on their life onto you. So the more positive you can be online, and not in a delusional way, but in a hopeful way. There's a difference between being like, everything's fine, we're not going to talk about this, and being hopeful and positive. The more positivity you will attract. And the reason that's important is not only for adding a positive to the world, but from an algorithm standpoint. Like the algorithms, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of like Pinterest, it doesn't matter. Facebook especially, and Instagram secondly. The more positivity you can create from your wording, from your interaction, from your comments in the comments, that AI is reading that, the bigger reach you're going to have. Okay. So I'm not talking about people being positive because you don't want to add more negativity, which is very important. But from an algorithm and reach standpoint, everybody's online right now. And everybody is clamoring for attention. And in the background, they're going to reward positivity right now. So
is it always, or is that just right now? Is it
always?
Always true.
And that has been even more so over the past 2 years. They've really, because they got in so much trouble. Yeah. Everything, all of these algorithm changes always relate to something they got in trouble for. Always. It's always a reaction. So, and you're going to see, because they're so overwhelmed with stuff right now, you've got election stuff going on, you've got COVID information stuff going on. You're going to see some things being flagged. And we had this happen last week where like random stuff got flagged for community standards. Well, it's because something happened on the back end. So you're going to see all kinds of weird stuff happen these next couple of weeks because they're just overwhelmed with information and they're trying to keep up with it, and they've gotten in trouble for things. But keep positive.
I like that. And I want to talk about community standards because I'm not sure if I know what that means. But before I just want to make sure that people know that they can chat with us. And so I'm just going to send out a little hello chat. And please write in questions as we're talking. We do want to answer your questions on this call. If you have specific things that you want to know about, please just throw them in the chat. So
yes. And I am a geek about all of this, so I will be smiling the entire time I'm talking about this.
Yes. Great. Which is, what you just said was like positivity begets, in this case, a positive result. And I think that, so I kind of want to know what is community guidelines or community standards? What does that mean? And then also, go there.
No, like there's the, Facebook has their community standards in the background of like what you can share, what you can't share, what's false, fake news, that kind of like certain websites, that kind of thing. And they're sometimes they have people in an office who look at that stuff. Sometimes it's artificial intelligence. It just depends. And right now they're just a little overwhelmed, just like the rest of us.
Right. And actually, one thing I want to bring up because it's relevant is what have you been spending the last week on? I mean, you have a day job, so what do you do? Yeah, like.
So I have been a crisis communications consultant for forever and have really loved it. But I decided that I wanted to move to Fargo, North Dakota, of all places, and because I've always wanted to live here. And I got a job at I work for a bank here, Gate City Bank. They're awesome. I had no idea I would find a day job that I actually liked a lot. Oddly enough. So I'm a digital content strategist. So basically I'm doing what I did before, but I had some certain skills. My skill set is so intensely social media communication.
Mm-hmm.
But I have written long form. I've written for magazines and that kind of thing, that I wanted to find a job where I could really hone in some skills that are less social media and more email, press release, that kind of thing. And it has been the perfect job, especially in the past week.
What kind of content, out of curiosity, is just what kind of content are you putting out in the last week? You know, what's is it social media posts and you know?
Oddly enough, I'm not doing social media for them, which is really
Okay.
funny, which is great. So I'm totally I'm learning other stuff, and using skills from that for these others. But there's press releases, communication plans, that kind of thing that we're doing, and just making sure that the customers are informed. And that's what's key, is making sure customers are informed. Regardless of what industry you're in right now, actually engaging is the perfect thing. So.
Okay, so if I'm a brand right now, you know, if I'm a coffee roaster, is there such thing as putting out too much content too frequently? You know, and that's kind of two questions. One, how frequently should we be posting? And number two is, what should we be posting? And then those are two big things. Yeah. But
okay, so and tell me if you can't hear me. We're having internet issues in Fargo. Imagine that. Everyone's online.
Right.
So first we'll talk about Facebook, because that's what we're going to talk about. From an algorithm point of view, once a day is the most you should be doing.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. However, that may change over the next couple of months, because so many people are online right now. Before, if you tried to post more, and I'm talking about pages, not groups and not profiles.
Okay.
But pages, no more than once a day, or else the algorithm is like, oh yeah, they want attention. We're going to start buffering them and requesting money to boost posts. So that's why I say when you're posting, make sure you're only posting one time a day. Instagram, you can do it once a day, you can do it twice a day, you can do it a couple times a week. As long as you're being consistent about stories you should be doing once a day at least.
Okay. And
you can do way more than that. But a lot of people are using stories as their way, both on Facebook and on Instagram, as their way to actually interact in a very, as much as I hate this word, authentic way.
Okay.
But that's how they're showing people behind the scenes, that kind of thing.
Why is authentic bad? What's that mean to you? Or what's...
Well, I feel like it's just been so overused.
Right.
You can be authentic and be really authentic and really show what's going on. But then there's also people who talk about being authentic and it's a staged photo, that doesn't really happen. And that's not actual real life. And they're like, I'm being authentic. I'm like, no, you're not.
Right now I'm trying to think about what would be authentic, truly authentic content. And I feel like, we had a copywriter on a couple of days ago with another webinar, and we were talking about, whether you should use humor, and what came out of that, in my opinion, was there's appropriate humor, there's appropriate insight, but don't go too far almost, or think about who's receiving it. And so don't show your roastery that's a mess, right? With too much information almost. But if I feel customers would want to know that you're still operating,
yes,
you're still shipping, and that they can help, and they can help you kind of mitigate this crisis. And I think one thing that's different about email versus social is the use of pictures. And I was curious, how important are pictures? How important is a great photo to telling our story, or our text posts? What's the medium that's best to tell that story?
It depends on your page. And I actually do a whole class about this. And if people join my group, they can see, I have an article on this that they can just look at. Okay, so it depends. Yes, a photo is great, is awesome, is really good, but every page performs differently in terms of what your audience sees most. So your page sees about 1%, about 1% of your fans see your posts organically, unless you have really taken the time to engage them on a very, conversational level. If you're just throwing out sales messages there, your fans are probably seeing, like 1% of your fan base is seeing your posts.
Okay.
However, if you've already created this conversation, you already are reaching more people. That being said, some pages get more interaction from text posts. Some pages get more interaction from photo posts. Some get more from video posts. It just depends. And some pages get more interaction at night. Some people get more interaction in the morning, or pages. So the key is look at your insights. You don't have to do anything majorly technical about this, but you go onto your Facebook page, and Instagram to a point too, though obviously Instagram is videos and photos. So this is more about Facebook. Go into your insights and go, okay, it turns out people like photos at 6 p.m. Or I had one page I helped run that they like text posts at 5:30 in the morning. You'd reach 25% of your fan base. Then you post a photo at like 9:30 at night, crickets. My page is the exact opposite. You post a text post, most of the time, I don't really reach a whole lot of people, especially in the morning. You post a photo in the morning, I'll reach 50%. But that's 50. Because, but that is because people, so Facebook feeds to fans what they engage with most. So everybody's Facebook feed looks different, obviously. Some people have very video heavy Facebook feeds. Some have very visually heavy, like still photo Facebook feeds. Some people have text heavy Facebook feeds. So they're getting served from those pages what they would interact with most, because the algorithm is, and with artificial intelligence, is learning what you interact with most, and they want to be of service to you, or else you're going to go away. So the whole thing is they want to give you what you interact with most. And
do you?
Yeah, sorry.
I was gonna say, do you have a page that you could show us the insights of quickly, where you could bring it up and share the screen, and it doesn't violate anything that's like weird?
That's what I'm wondering. Okay, let me.
You think about that for a second.
Let me think. I mean, I can do my own. I just don't know if I can get into it because of my internet. I'm trying to think of anybody else that I could, because I have like 70 that I manage. I don't manage them. I have admin access because I'm such a geek. I want to see what's working.
Right. Okay.
So while we're talking, I'm going to look, and then we're going to. Can you still see me?
Yep. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah. So we're having no issues on that side, but I just know that if you share a screen, then that'll pop up and it'll take over for everybody. But and I guess so definitely the type of post. I never knew that. I never knew that the post could make that big of a difference. I have to think that the folks that are listening to this are. I think coffee is so visual as a community that I'm guessing that that's part of what plays well, but I don't know. It'd be great if anybody has any kind of insight into that. Go ahead and share it in the chat. But in this moment of connecting, it seems like telling stories, giving people real insight, kind of empathy, like giving a chance for people to feel empathy for your business. Like that's one of the things that I think that we as content creators for our businesses, for our brands, should project out that we want to connect with you. We want to sympathize with you. We want to be like, without being sappy. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it makes total sense. And yes, and I have insights I can show you. So I found them. But first, I want to talk about the empathy part.
Okay.
And you and I talked about, and we can get further into this from a content strategy right now. And as stressed as people are about money, as stressed as people are about sales, you need to be extremely strategic about this now. And about your content strategy. People, and you and I talked about this before, people are looking for the helpers.
Yeah, this is great.
This is in two ways. One, they're looking for the helpers in terms of content that teaches them something or helps them get through what they're going through. That is huge. But they're also looking for stories about the helpers. So from a shareability, a viral, I hate even using that word right now, from a social media reach perspective, You can share content that is not sleazy, that is not sales. But what it does is it connects you to your audience. And as it connects you to your audience, they will know you have things to sell.
Right.
I mean, you and I talked about the whole thing that they went out and hoarded toilet paper, but they're running out of coffee. I mean, there is going to be such a coffee crisis right now. Approaching that with grace and humor and connecting with your people and saying, we are here for you. We are here for you. We have your caffeine, America. Like, or wherever they are based.
Right.
And, you have special mugs that are creative, like here, like we'll send you a mug with this coffee. Do you have a subscription coffee service that you can have a COVID special? And you don't call it a COVID special, but you can have like a survival special. Like, are you working from home for the first time? We will hook you up with fantastic local coffee. You might be 2 blocks from their shop, from their roastery or whatever.
Right.
But people still need it delivered, or they need a way to get their caffeine. There are so many opportunities to connect in a not salesy way, but you're solving a problem. You are a helper. On another level, if you as a business are a helper, it's an incredible opportunity to show that you are. Are you donating coffee somewhere? Are you making sure that people are caffeinated who need it? Are you helping the helpers?
Yeah.
This is huge.
I think that moment of saying, you might have capacity, you might have coffee on hand, and, I just heard about a shelter that opened up where literally like the head of our county, and Multnomah County is fairly big, is putting blue tape on the conference, the Portland Convention Center, and they're turning it into a homeless shelter. So she's putting blue tape to separate out the 150 beds that will house homeless. And I'm thinking, okay, so here's this person. She was an ER doc as well. The story had so many layers of somebody, sacrificing. And I'm like, that's where somebody should be donating coffee. That's where somebody should be helping the community, because those people are doing a lot.
Yes.
And so, and not doing it in a sleazy way, but in a way that's really a win-win for everybody involved. Yeah.
You're providing a helpful service. This is not about me. This is a community effort. You and I saw, and it's so interesting. We were part of things in a very small community where people rallied together and helped each other in times of tragedy. Mm-hmm. And if it was a storm or it was an unexpected death, and I feel like people have an opportunity to help others in a way bigger way that is very similar to a small town feel. Right. So how can you be of assistance? How can you be of service to your community in a way that really sustains you? Because we're all in this together. So do it.
Yeah.
And that I call that banking karma.
Yeah. And I think that's good to point out, that this may not come back, this may not benefit your company right away. Right. And that's a little bit of a faith, you have to have some faith about that's going to be useful, or that's worth it. I believe that right now we kind of need caffeine to get through this anyways, but and so there's, just know that there's going to be, the timeline might be different than a normal kind of effort that you have.
Yep.
And that's okay. It'll pay off in the end. So
yeah. It'll be slower than we would, want it to be, but yes.
So we've got some great tips here about the not posting more than once a day on Facebook. There's obviously some differences around Instagram. Mm-hmm. We were talking a little bit about those insights and understanding kind of when to post. And I think you said you had a page that we could take a look at. Okay. If you go ahead and share that should be.
Okay. So how do I do that?
So down below, I think my face will be a share button on the green share button.
Oh, the big thing that says share screen. Okay. Thanks for playing, everyone. God. Okay. Share screen. We're going to, hold on one second. There we go. Share. Okay. So we're going to, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. Great. So when you go to your page, ad center, inbox, don't pay attention to that. Events, insights. Okay, so you're in insights here. And the reason okay. So every page will give you when it was published, the time, like what it was, a photo,
Okay.
you know, who it reached, like a text post status. Like, as you can see right here, mine was in the morning and it was a meme about dogs. Okay, so I talk about definitely think about what time you're posting and what kind of content. But the other thing is, what does your audience like? Mine like dogs and humor.
Yeah.
That's why people are going to interact with that. So not only was it a photo in the morning, which would reach more people, but this was a dog thing here. I don't think we can. Okay, yeah. Like this is about self-care and dogs. So like this is going to be, my people are really about mental health, dogs, you know, that humor, that kind of thing. And that's what this was about. So that's huge. Look at what you're sharing. Like, do they like photos more? Do they like text posts more? You know, and mix it up, because you're going to reach different people with those different things, like different interactions.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But just be cognizant. Also, right now, especially, don't use hashtags on Facebook. You can use them on Instagram. Don't use them on Facebook. They tend to decrease reach for people. And since there's so many things going on right now, you might reach a little less people now than you would anyway. So just be cognizant of that. So just be cognizant.
Does that mean that you should not be reposting things from Instagram if you're having...
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
95% of the time for most pages, if you pull something from Instagram to Facebook, it will lessen your reach. 5% of pages, they actually their people actually interact with posts from Instagram to Facebook. But most of the time, the majority of the time, you'll reach less people.
Okay. And when we're talking about, and I don't know how much experience you have with this, but like the call to action, like if people want to support, where should that happen? Like in Facebook, is that a link in the post itself? Is it, you know, Instagram obviously has like the link in bio kind of like concepts, but you know,
right. How do you reach the most people?
How do you reach the people? And if also one of our goals is to help people sell coffee because it's a lifeline right now with online sales, how do they do that and not either be banned for it or not banned, but like hurt for it, you know?
Right. So as I think about this more, especially with the whole, I'm going to stop the share. Hold on.
Yeah.
As I think about this more, yes, you should forget what I said about right now about the posting one time only to Facebook a day. Oh. Let's talk about doing 2 times a day.
Okay.
The key is find out what your people interact with the most. Things to outside links serve to less people. But what you should be doing is talking about what you're doing in your posts. Being transparent to a positive point. Don't be like, my life sucks, I'm not making money. Like, which I can totally understand. Like, it's terrifying. But that's not going to help you in the long run and connect with your clients, because they're going to be like, yeah, well, that's everyone. So they'll kind of, go away and dismiss you. And I hate saying that, but I really, from a strategy point, be very careful about that.
Okay.
I mean, obviously tell the truth. Don't say that life's perfect when it's not, but just be cognizant of that. So if I was telling someone what their strategy should be in order to sell more, whatever it is, right now, Facebook specifically, post twice a day. 90% of your posts should be audience engaging and interactive. 5 to 10% of your posts should be like, hey, you can buy this here.
Okay.
If you want. And you can do that in a very classy way. Be like, hey, are you going through withdrawal? Or do you anticipate withdrawal? Like, make it funny to a point, but really it's going to turn the way of toilet paper memes. I am truly like, I was telling you about that viral post from Wuhan.
Oh, actually, yeah, this is, I
yeah.
feel like we should just share this afterwards with the people in the
Yeah,
follow-up.
I'm wondering. Yeah, I'll find it. So this woman was talking about the things that she wished she would have had when she went in quarantine. And it was like talking about all this stuff and like how she made things. And then it said, please make sure you have enough coffee. I ran out because I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think that I would need this much.
It's like we have all the rice that we're ever going to need, but we
Right.
don't have coffee. And it's like, you can't, yeah.
I can't function. I cannot be my best crisis communication self without massive doses of cold brew, which you have seen.
Yes.
You have personally witnessed that. Oh, yes.
She could swing our volume one way or the other if she was out of town.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. And that's, I mean, it's like, I think that there's room for humor. I think there's room to be yes. Like, to play a little bit with it. One thing that I did hear in this last webinar that we did was, which I think was good, is to imagine that the person on the other end of the communication is in the worst possible scenario. And
yes,
I liked having that as my target, because like, if somebody was personally sick with this, how would they react to this? And so I think that that's like a filter that folks can use on social, I'm assuming as well, to audit how far you go with it, you know?
I agree wholeheartedly. That's why it's really important to know your audience too. Be really, like, some pages, they've already thrived on dark humor. I tend to be a dark humor person because as a widow, that's how I dealt with it. And I dealt with it in a very public way that way. And so I've attracted people who are very dark humor. Like, that's what they expect from me. And that's kind of how they deal with things too. Yeah. So what I would post would be totally different and more on brand, dark humor wise, than another brand or company would be. So be really cognizant of your audience, really cognizant. And if you schedule posts, be super careful to audit anything you have scheduled right now on any platform, because that can really bite you. If you have ads running, anything like that, do an audit immediately.
Do you have any, I mean, talk about ads, like it seems weird to spend money in this environment, but if more people are on social, is that an opportunity? Is that weird? Yes. I mean, what do you think about that?
It's an incredible opportunity to spend money in a way that is not sleazy.
Okay.
Think about what you want to accomplish with that ad spend. If you have a story that you're telling about your business, about how you've helped the community, or a story about how you can help the community or your audience, boost that. Boost that. If you, especially right now, if you have it where it's just, your strategy is to invite people to like your page. If you're just boosting a photo or a post or something, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Your cost per click is going to be so low. It's unbelievable, just because there's so many people online. And making sure that you're really cognizant of how you're targeting in the background. Like, if your audience is within 50 miles of such and such a place and your avatar is a mom in her 30s, make sure you're being really specific about that, because you're going to use that to build your audience. So people are online right now. You can engage with them and get them to interact with you in a really good way. So yeah, it's all about brand awareness.
It's, I think that there's a lot of us who haven't done that work ahead of time. And so now we're, there's opportunity, but it's a scramble, and it's like, we're also dealing with all this other emotional things, the background noise that we each have. And so how to process that, the background noise that you might hear from my family in the background, because we're all home, right? Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, as much as I can talk about this, I live by myself with my dog. My way of dealing with this is totally different than someone who was home, working at home for the first time, or not in a roastery and their kids are home and it's like they don't know where their income is going from. This is the first time I've ever had a regular income in 12 years.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's so different. So I know how it feels to be like, I don't know where this is going. Like, I don't know where my money's going to come from. Like when Jim died, like I didn't have the guide income. I couldn't work. Like, so I on a different level, I get not being able to be creative about marketing because my life has blown up in my face. And that's what's happening with people now. So, yes.
So true. I would love to see if any of the folks that are on right now have any other kind of specific questions, or we can kind of continue to dive into other things. If you know, what brought you all here? What questions do you all have? Give some.
While people are typing questions, I will recommend that everyone read the 4 Agreements. Like is it a book or? It is a book.
Okay.
It is a book called The 4 Agreements, and it is all about how everybody has their own reality.
There we go.
Hi, Catherine. The 4 Agreements will help everyone get through this. It's what I tell crisis communicators to read. It is, especially on social, because people have their own reality of what's going on. So it's really important to understand that and to not internalize things, especially right now online, especially when we're all coming from a place of panic. So,
and we'll follow up to everybody with an email, and we'll put some resources together. So if we can find that quote from Wuhan and just some of these things we've talked about, and we can link also to the 4 Agreements. So
yes,
I know that one thing that a lot of coffee roasters are struggling with is the fact that their wholesale customers are hurting as well. And there's this balance between connecting with people directly, and it feels like you're cutting out the middle person in that relationship a little bit. So I guess, are there any strategies around building community with other brands in a time like this? Where does that work, and how would you do that? And
collaboration is key right now, especially in a purely strategic way. From a humanity way, yes, we all have different resources, like you and I. Obviously, we have things we need to connect with people. But from a strategic standpoint, that is very true too, because other people's audiences are really like, they will save us somewhat, because we are all looking for the helpers, like I talk about. And if you can connect with a brand that's either similar to yours, or you wanted to work with, you're being of service to their audience and they're being of service to your audience. So there's these things where you can be a helper, but in a different way. So, I mean, there's, finding, I call it a quarantine buddy. I have a quarantine buddy who's also a PR professional, and we bounce ideas off of each other. Like, because that person knows how it feels to be dealing with this, and you can talk each other down if needed. I mean, we were both eating ice cream out of a tub at like 9 a.m, and we like our jobs.
But I mean, that's a great, I love the idea of even just trying to say, like, somebody that has a slightly different perspective, whether it's like a different job, like a different employer, or I'm trying to think about how that play out for coffee roasters, whether that's, finding another like-minded business in your community that you could, I mean, like, I'm trying
caterer, you got a caterer, you got a potter. Like, if you guys,
interesting.
If you find someone who makes mugs or something like that, and you create this delivery package together, like, that would be awesome.
Right. No one's going
small businesses.
That's a win. that's a win-win because you can talk about the partnership itself in a
Hmm.
post. That's a story. That's like a background. You can talk
Yep.
about the lead up and we're about to ship this out and we're doing this thing and that thing. And it's like, how, even talking about the juggle, I think that that's one thing that people, we kind of go into detail about the hand washing and the strategy and the things that we're doing to keep the business going. And I guess going to like the next level, which is like the humanity side of it, less
Hmm.
like the operational and the process side, but like, hey, I was trying to meet with Joe over there and he's the potter. And we had to figure out how do we interact with 6 feet away and
Right.
tell that story.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that I think I could see playing well on social.
Hmm.
Um, and it's like underneath it all, you and Joe are trying to find a way to sell something online. Like, let's
Right.
just be clear. Like, but there's a human element to it that we
Yeah.
could tell that story to, and it could get shared, and
Yes.
or here's a selfie. When how do you get the selfie where the other person is like 6 feet away, and it's like
Right.
one person's really big and one person's really small. Those are things that I'm just like making up on the fly here, but
No, a
um,
Fargo Brewing Company has a hilarious couch beer thing. Like you can go to their store and they're sitting on the couch and you're 6 feet away and you can get beer from there. You can't drink it there anymore, but
yes,
it's couch beer. Like they're there to help and cheers, virtual cheers. So
and I'm obviously trying to like practice what I preach here, where I don't have like a home brewing guide or something like that, but
mhm,
I'm trying to come up with this, be a service to my community by coming up with these Zoom, webinars and things like that.
yeah,
And I think that there's an opportunity to also create events where they're virtual
mhm,
events. They're ways of literally getting somebody onto a video call together.
yeah,
And there's some caveats to that, which is that I've heard that there are some trolls out there that will do things that are not appropriate. So don't just
yes.
know that you may want to make sure that
Imagine that.
only video should be on you, and you don't want video to be on someone else.
Oh
But
God, that's funny.
yeah, but I do think like for roasters, creating events that are like teaching how to brew at home, because
Yes.
suddenly we have hundreds of millions of Americans possibly in the next week or two that
Hmm.
will be home brewers almost
Right.
exclusively.
Yeah.
Um,
And they want
so
to know why their coffee sucks because they didn't do it right.
definitely. And I'm actually in just for this audience as well. Just know that I'm looking to put together a webinar for next week around how to roast coffee that tastes better at home. So we're continuing this series, and
Ah,
honestly, this is flying by the seat of my pants. I think that's one other thing about like either social media and is just we keep on iterating and making things up and just trying to see
mhm,
what can be helpful. And
right.
and that's there doesn't have to be a big master plan. Just take it one day at a time and
Yeah.
continue to post out there. So
I really hope people are like doing jumping jacks or something in the morning. Like I cannot stress this enough as someone who's been in the middle of an insane life change, like, and been
hmm,
stressed about money. The only way I was able to be creative in order to make money was to get my yayas out, as I called it. Like
yeah,
50 jumping jacks, some squats, and some sit-ups. Like I know it sounds simple, but that sometimes is the only way that then you can get into the mind space where you can put some headphones on and at
hmm,
least get some creativity out there. If you don't do that, then you just obsess about how you're going to be poor for the rest of your life, which it might not be the case.
right.
It probably is not going to be the case, but you can't get out of your own head unless you get some endorphins.
And especially because so much of the social side is personal, right? Like there is you on the other side of that keyboard and
Yep.
interacting and making comments, and as small business owners, um, we have a hard time distancing ourselves from our brand,
Yes.
and so I don't know if that's part of the 4 agreements, but I that's almost to me like one of the things that's we're all sandwiched like this.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really, really key point. And people, we think about so much about this, like obsessing. We don't know what people know and what people don't know. And we sometimes, the more tired we are towards the evening, the more likely we are to post something that might not be the best. for some people.
So, okay, here's a question. Should you schedule out posts? Should you give yourself a buffer time where you say like, I think this is a good post. I'm going to leave it in draft. I'll come back to it. You know, is there almost like, when all this uncertainty, could you make mistakes on
Oh,
social
yeah.
media? And how do we prevent that? You know, like that's,
If it's something extremely personal, if you have something, it's like when you need to write a letter to someone and you need to get it all out, but you know you probably shouldn't really send it, but you're going to obsess over it over and over and over. You write it out and then you throw it away.
yeah.
Sometimes you need to write something out and schedule it. Or you need to like write it out in Evernote or something like that, and then come back to it a couple hours later. Be like, should I really be saying this? Or I've just finished an article for a client about how to handle haters and trolls online. And one of them is, this sounds simple, but don't admin and drink. Like, the worst things happen when you are in an argument with a stranger online and it escalates because you've been drinking. So, you know, especially right now, be really careful.
Definitely. Yeah. Recognize what you're doing and how you're handling yourself.
Yes.
Well, anything else, Hannah, that I know we're getting kind of close to the hour here, and I really appreciate the time, everybody.
Yes.
Any other questions from the audience, or any other tips we want to kind of wrap up with?
If there aren't any more questions, but we'll wait and see. But really, we will get through this. It will be okay in one way or another, but don't get too far deep in your head. Write it out. If you're not journaling your anxiety out, if you do that, you will come up with some incredible ideas a lot of the time when you do that too. So,
I love that.
Yep. Exercise.
Take a first draft. Yeah. Take a first draft before you have to put it into something like a social media, you know?
Yeah. I'm always like, it builds dark humor and character. So, yes. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me on. You're welcome, Catherine.
Yeah. Thanks, Catherine. Hope you're doing well. And I'll follow up everybody with an email with some links. Hannah's already mentioned that she has a social media Facebook group where she talks about, you know, these strategies, and I'm guessing others. So we'll link to that. And you also have her contact information if you have any follow-up questions. But if people are just viewing this, Hannah, how should they get in contact with you?
Go to, because I haven't had time to make sure my website is up. Something got into it, but it's been a crisis this week. So the best way is through Facebook. HSH Social Media is the group, or just find me, Hannah Stonehouse Hudson. That's the easiest way to find me. If you have any questions, if you go to the group, everything's free in there. There's nothing, I don't sell anything. It's just my way to puke out my knowledge, honestly. I got some ebooks in there. I got some stuff, and lots of people ask questions. And there's a ton of collaboration in there. But yeah, just find me.
That's great. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Hannah. I really appreciate it. And everybody stay well. And I guess, we'll continue to provide as many resources as we can to help you as the community and have everyone, you know, kind of survive this crisis. So
yes, definitely.
Good luck, everybody.
Thank you, John.
Stay well. All right. Bye.